sleep, girl. Let's get to work. Hey everyone. Well, we got another one. It's a Poulan Pro 4218Av this time. Not an A, an AV. This was the older model, I believe. And yeah, we'll show you. They're not that bad of a saw, and I'll just show you what I did to this one. A little bit different than what I did to the 4218A, but I'll just show you what we did here. Okay, let's have a look at that thing. I'll show you what we did to it here. One's a little screwed up. So, this is that top cover mod I do. My camera's not going to do it here. She's on her last legs. Anyway, you get the idea. I trim it out so that the heat has a place to go, and it blows way more air out there than it does stock. So I do that, and then I did the muffler mod. And I took the baffle right out of it, and on these you pretty much have to just grind the edge down, and then you'll have to weld them back up. I tried peeling the edge away and I just couldn't do it. These, the only difference between these that I can see and the 4218A that visibly that I see is that this has a heat shield and the other one didn't. So if you do a mod on the 4218A, it'll melt the plastic right here, and this shield protects that. So you could always, I don't know if they have the screw hole there, if you just drill one and put one in, but you could put your own little shield in there and make one up, or buy the actual part if you want. It'd be super easy to make a shield though. Yeah, so other than that, it's pretty much the identical saw. I changed the air intake, so it sucks air up there now. They normally suck it down here under the cover. There's a little port there, and the idea is that it throws all the sawdust to the outside of the flywheel, and it sucks the clean air from the inside of the flywheel. But the problem I don't like is that, you know, on a hot summer day, if you're cutting lots, it can actually, the heat just has a place to rise up into the carb area. So I'll pull this top cover off, and I'll show you what I did to the cover as well to try and help vapor locking. Okay, so the only thing I did to the top cover was I drilled that one hole. You can experiment with this yourself, but I cut the little piece off here. The idea of it is to stop the filter from getting sucked in, but they still have these notches and stuff to hold the filter out. I find they're snappier without those little plastic things. You just got to make sure you cut them off so there's no little pieces that can fly in there. But I take them off, and they seem to run good without them. Try it first, just see what you think. use at own risk or do at own risk. So yeah, there's the cover. That's the only thing I did was put this one extra hole in there. That's right in line with the top barrel, because these have that 2-barrel carb, and a lot of people don't like them. I don't know if they really actually help with emissions or not. I think it just adds air when the transfers close. I think it adds air above that, the ports, and then just mixes a little more fresh air for less smoke, I guess, is the idea of that. So anyway, that little hole is down in there, right down in there, for the air intake, and you can see I plugged it off with tape. Now you can play with that too. Some of the saws for a couple of years had like a little a duct there, and it extended out, and that system works really good. And that one you just leave alone, because it's crazy how good it actually works. But I talked to one of the engineers, or I think it was the main salesman there for Poulan back in the day, and he was saying that they only ran it for a couple of years, and then they got rid of it to save costs. That's what he told me. So now they just have this little teardrop hole right there, and it doesn't seem to work as good as the other setup did with the duct. But they only had them on the older, like early 2000s, like the 2450s and stuff. Okay, so everything else is basically I've left alone. I noticed this area here, once you put the cover on, there's nowhere for the heat to really go. I guess now with the top cover mod it can come out here, but if you don't do the top cover mod, all that heat just kind of stays in here. And while the coil's right there, so it may get hot as it sits, I don't know. This one doesn't have an issue the way it is, but I suppose you could always, if you didn't want to do the top cover mod and you had problems with hot starts, look and see if your coil is heating up. That could be part of your issue there. So here's the cover. So looks like a duck. And maybe I cut a little more than I should have, I don't know. But anyway, it works really good. It lets the heat out. And then on top of that, you can just see the little ridges there. If you look at your cover, you'll see the difference. And then right there, I put heat tape on there. Again, just to reflect the heat away from the carb area. All the more heat you can keep from there, the better, like as far as vapor locking and stuff goes. I moved the intake up to there. Doesn't see, I've done quite a bit of cutting with it. There's not, a real ton of sawdust in there. So yeah, I got rid of the instructions because I think it's just going to confuse somebody. So I cut the sticker off because, yeah, it's pull 5 times, put choke on half. Like, I mean, all you have to do on this saw, it starts so good now. All you do is you pull the choke on. All you need to do is pull the blue button out. It activates the on switch, and you pull it, and this thing starts either first or second pull every single time. I never have to pull it 3 times when it's cold. It's crazy they got such a bad reputation for not starting and running, but the problem is that people just don't know how to tune the carbs. It takes definitely a little bit of practice and experience, and these 2 barrels are for sure a little more challenging, but I've kind of got them figured out there as far as adjustment goes. And on the other saw, this one, they made these from 2003 to 2011, and this is the PP 4218Av. Then they had the PP 4218A, and that's that other video you see, the one that says what I did to make it rip or something like that. 4218A, what I did to make it rip, I think is what I called that video. And anyways, it's the same saw. Basically everything's the same except for, like I said, for that heat shield. And they made them from, I think, 2012 up to 2016 or something like that, or maybe it was higher, that model. They seem to make them in like 8-year increments, and then they change them, it seems. But anyhow, this thing cuts, pretty good. I find with this 2-barrel carb, you got this kind of a rich spot within the like when you let off the throttle and get back on it, it just seems you get a little bit of a burble, but they rev a little higher, I find, than the like the 2150s and the 2050 Pioneers. They actually rev you know, you can get them up to 13,000, 13.2 or something like that. This one here is set up, I believe it's at 12.4. 12.4 or 12.5, I think, is what I have it set up, wide open with the tack on it. So yeah, that's it. This is a problem with these. They don't vent sometimes. This one's working good, so it's fine, but you know, make sure you mix these at 40:1. Use good oil, mix it exact every time. It has to be exact 40:1, and these are a good little saw. They'll run just fine for you. Okay, so one other thing I did here was I put a little bit of heat tape there, again just to reflect the heat from, that normally sits tight when the cover's on. I kind of got it off. Just helps reflect the heat away from the cylinder, which just helps them run consistent. So if you know, if you're cutting, working the saws really hard. These saws say they're 125-hour saws, whereas the 2150s, 2450s, and the 20, 21, 2450, all those saws, I don't know about the Wild thing. Basically, well, that is the same saw. They claim 50 hours on those. These they claim 125. So maybe it's because these are a Nicosil cylinder. I'm not sure. Where I am, this thing has 131 pounds cranking compression, and that's exactly what the other saw I had. That's what it had, and it was a brand new saw. This one's been used a bit. Yeah, you can see where I opened up the muffler a bit there. This thing here, a fellow Jim on one of the home light sites or Poulan sites, he was showing me this. You take this, the recoil side spacer out there for the, there's only 2 bolts that hold the muffler on. You take that one out. It's like a spacer. Just drill a couple holes in it, and drill 4 holes in it, like 3/16 holes. Just drill them about a ½ an inch or halfway up the tube there. That just helps get a little more exhaust out. And yeah, other than that, works really good. Starts good cold, runs good hot. You can sink it in the wood and then let off the throttle, and it'll just keep running. So yeah, they're not a bad little saw. Just need a little bit of work. The top cover mod, I like that mod. I'm in Canada where it's cold, so to me it's only going to benefit somebody that's in the US or somewhere where it's warm all the time. These things just cook when you shut them off in the summer, and this way now the heat has a place to go. Just helps them start and run better. And you can see where I trimmed the cover back there a bit too. And it's just nice when you go to put the cover on, it doesn't hit the handle all the time. So I just trimmed it back a little bit there. And again, just lets the heat get out. It doesn't melt anything or nothing like that. Before, it used to extend underneath the cover there. You look at the old saws, that's how their top covers, they actually used to have their top covers trimmed back there. I didn't want to trim it that far back because there's a bolt hole right there. You just trim it. I just cut it with a hacksaw and then finish it up with a hand file. Okay, well hopefully that helps you out and makes your Poulan Pro run more like a pro again. They're not a bad saw, they just need a little bit of work. So hopefully that helps you out, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya. A tree came crashing down and those trees bowed right over. These things were kind of famous for vapor locking. Probably another 40 minutes we'll have her done.